Welcome to the Look Good, Move Well podcast.
Okay, everyone, welcome to the Look Good, Move Well podcast video edition. And if you're listening to us right now and you can't see what's going on, let me give you a little bit of a rundown of what we have here in the updated studio. First, I want to make a really big shout out to the team that put this together. So Satya is very much responsible for the look that you see up here, as well as Nate behind the camera and Molly over there on the couch. And we are here at Functional Bodybuilding Lab.
Yeah.
Headquarters has now become Functional Bodybuilding Lab. We're in the upstairs, and I am just blown away by how this thing came together. I mean, it just looks, we even have this little light box that tells you that you're listening to the Look Good, Move Well podcast.
On air.
And we're going to be talking about more body composition nutrition this week because we just had such positive responses from our recent episode that we did on nutrition that I just think we need to keep rolling with it. You know, we go through cycles with the podcast on topics that we're covering. And it's just, I've been feeling called to get back into talking about nutrition. When we talk about nutrition, we talk about health, we talk about performance, but really we talk a lot about body composition. People want to look good on top of the moving well thing.
That's right. And I think especially for people who are already invested in training in the gym regularly, they want to make sure that their efforts are actually going to pay off. So if you're in the gym and you're putting in tons of work and you're sweating your booty off every time you come in, you want to make sure that it's actually changing your body in a way that feels good for you, that you feel like you're making progress on.
And I think that that's actually one of the big reasons that the Look Good, Move Well functional bodybuilding culture got started. People have heard the story on this channel. If you haven't heard the story so far, there's a big component of why functional bodybuilding began because I was kind of burnt out from competing at the highest level of performance. But another big component to launching into this style of coaching and training in our system comes from being a group fitness coach and an individual coach for about a decade. And 6 or 7 of those years, I was very much in the high intensity, come into the gym, work yourself super hard. And the vast majority of clients that we were working with, their initial reason for coming was, I want to look better. They talked about wanting to feel better, have more energy, but there was always a component of, I want to lose some weight, I want to tone up, I want to be leaner, and changing bodies to look a particular way, and the confidence that comes with that was so evident in just almost every client consultation I had. Fast forward 3 or 4 or 5 years, putting people through the paces of super high intensity with performance and shelling out your absolute best physical exertion every single day, the ratio of how many people had actually transformed their body to people that just could perform a little bit better but still look the same was not favorable. It was not what we were after. It was like, wow, you had individuals saying, man, I love that I could deadlift a lot. I love that I can do 20 kipping pull-ups, but I still don't have the confidence in the way I feel in my body and the way I look. And yeah, that was part of the shift in thinking around training methodology, how to approach nutrition was okay, well, is pushing intensity so much really what is going to help people achieve the optimal balance of eating well, nourishing their bodies in a way that supports the feel and the look that they want and their training?
Yeah, and I think with CrossFit specifically, a lot of people come in and they start doing CrossFit, especially if they haven't had a big fitness background, and they do see a lot of great change in their body right off the bat. But I think that there becomes a point at which that tends to plateau. And then it's okay, how are we really going to get dialed in on nutrition? Maybe they start experimenting with what they're eating and quantities of macronutrients to dial that in to actually see some more change. And I'd love to hear more about what you ended up doing with your clients at your gym and what were some of the specifics around how to get because we're talking about what's the CrossFit look.
Sure, yeah. Well, it's interesting that you said that some people, there's a I don't even know how to quantify it. A good number, some people, a few people that came into the CrossFit gym model, right? And this is not we're not talking specifically about CrossFit, the methodology. The model was come into a group fitness environment, push yourself hard, and the harder you work, the better everything else is going to pay off, right? And there were some individuals that came in who, be it because they had a decent lifestyle already and they had just been inactive for a long time, maybe they inherently had decent, like when they started moving, they adopted better nutrition practices just as a product of like what they had learned in the past, or maybe they happened to start the paleo diet like right when they started doing CrossFit too, or they got onto Zone or something that was like hot at the time. But it was always like a mystery. It's like, well, why is this person just like, they started CrossFit 6 months later, they dropped 20 pounds and they like look and feel great, versus these other 10 people who are like, they're not feeling it, and what I think as like a young professional in the fitness industry, I was like, give me the magic bullet. What can I do to just like help everybody get everything they want like that? And I think I thought and I was told like, oh, it's just, you just do this high intensity thing and everything's going to be fine. And I started to quickly realize like, I think what I know about how I've transformed myself and what I've educated myself on is like, there's a big nutrition component here that's missing, that some people are getting to bypass because they have, better control of their caloric intake and they just inherently know how to manage their energy balance, or some people that have just stumbled into the right diet that worked for them that helps them to control their caloric consumption. Anyhow, that was a little bit of a tangent, but back to what you were saying, or actually, why don't you reiterate your question to get us back on track about what is this, transformation that we were seeing or that people were wanting to have, or that was at least marketed to people about this is the CrossFit look that is out there?
Yeah, I think it's a question of what is the difference between the body change you're going to get through a CrossFit style workout, and what is the difference between that and something that you are going to get in body composition change as a result of nutrition practices, maybe lower intensity, maybe some of the things that we do with functional bodybuilding.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think the only way to talk about like what is I think the CrossFit body is only really defined by the person who does it professionally, and that's like the CrossFit athlete, which was interestingly enough was sort of the marketing for people coming in early on was, hey, look at these CrossFit Games athletes, look at these regionals competitors, and those athletes were training CrossFit or for the sport of CrossFit in a way that was very different than what was happening in the gym for the general population. The other, what you saw, I'll speak to what I saw in the men. I'll let you comment on what you saw in the women. Okay. What I saw in the men was, for somebody who growing up wanted a muscular physique and wanted to, like, I was like, wow, these dudes are jacked. Like, they got big arms, they have developed quads. Most of them are starting to have shredded abs. There was, it wasn't a look of like a bodybuilder in that there was like really broad, wide shoulders with this very narrow tapered waist. It was more like what I would imagine seeing in like a, like an NFL position player who was like, had to be like athletic, not like a lineman who's like really big and heavy to like, play their sport, but, position player. So, and it just started to like kind of morph to like this place where it was like, whoa, these CrossFit male athletes look like superheroes. Like they just have tons of muscle in the right places and they can do crazy things. And anyway, that's what I saw happening on the male side. What were you seeing on the female side?
Yeah, superhero is a great word for that, because from a female perspective, that was the first time that I saw women where it was not only acceptable to have a good amount of muscle, but really looking amazing to me. And it was like the booty short came out. Mm-hmm. It was the first time you're seeing women just like out there in the booty short and the bra, just with muscles everywhere. And the things that they could do with their bodies were totally astounding. And it was very inspiring because as a woman, I think I was brought up in a time when women weren't really allowed to take up that much space with our bodies. And this is still probably true to a certain extent. And so that CrossFit look on the female side really changed that.
Yeah. And what were you hearing from, let's say, general population women coming in that were like, maybe had seen some of that? Did you hear people saying like, I want to look like that, or that's not the look I want, or what was your take on that?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of talk around bulky, like women saying, I don't want to be too bulky, or I would have people in my family comment when I started doing CrossFit, and I'm not jacked.
Debatable. Okay.
But I started to get a little bit of traps and a little bit of arm shoulder definition, and I loved it.
Yeah.
And I had women in my family being like, oh, wow, you're getting a little, little muscular there. Like, kind of not really as a compliment.
Oh, yeah.
But it really didn't bother me because there was a category of women who were bought into that look and were just like, yeah, bring on the muscle. That looks awesome to me.
Yeah, Megan, my wife, was in the same boat. I mean, it's funny. She tells me about like this period of time, like years before we met, when she was, I don't know, in her 20s at some point. But she had her best friend. They would go to the gym and then they would come home and just like flex in the mirror. They just love flex. So when we started CrossFit, I mean, it was always about muscles. Like she would, pop a bicep flex to me. It was awesome. Like for the right person who was looking for that, they were just, yeah. And then for the men, like I heard a lot of people men come in and say, I want to get leaner, but I don't want to look like you. Like they're like always
I don't want to look like you.
They don't want to look like me. I'm like, what's wrong with me? It wasn't like it was like more like, I don't expect to look like you, because I mean, I took on that kind of shape of like the CrossFit, games athlete. I mean, it just happened after years of doing the work, and that's kind of the key point here for both the men and the women. It was like none of the men and the women in the sport showed up and on month 3 were looking like superheroes. I mean, you can go. I had a great base of a physique, but if you look at year 1, 2, and 3 of me competing at the CrossFit Games as a team competitor, I hadn't built the time and the energy, into the sport to develop the physique that I had 7 years late, 7 years after I had started. So 7 years, I wish we had maybe I get it to Nate, but we can pan it up on the screen.
Slideshow.
But there's a photo of 2016 games on the last day, on the second to last workout where I had won my heat, and I, it was like the end of the weekend. I'd just been like eating like crazy. I'm all like kind of swollen because I'm just like stressed out for 4 days. And I swear, I look at the picture to this day and it's just like, it looks like somebody like did the enhance button on the thing where I'm like, just made every muscle in the whole body puff up. And I'm just like, just like, that's like the 7-year mark from when I like started my first competition. It was like, yeah, you put in 7 years of 3 hours of training a day, super high training volume, probably eating close to 5,000 calories most days. Like, you've got to eat and work tremendously to build that kind of physique. And what happened after I stopped 3 years later? I don't train as much. I eat less. Like, I haven't like lost athletic look, but I've shrunk. I'm 10 pounds lighter. Like if I measured myself that day, I have just, someone just like let the air out of the dummy, the like the puffed up, superhero dummy. Yeah. So, yeah. And that was always kind of that misconception was like, yeah, I'm here to like look good and, feel great. And I want to get, I want to get build some muscle, but I don't want to look like you. I'm like, don't worry. Unless you want to jump on the 5-year training plan with me and train 3 hours a day and eat a ton, like I think you're safe.
Yeah. Well, that brings up a good point, which is that most people are not training and eating like it's their full-time job. Most people are in the gym for, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours, maybe 6 hours a week. So how would you suggest they go about body composition change in that case?
Yeah, great segue. Well, I think that and I'll touch on one more thing from where we were coming from in this conversation, which is the person, there are many, many athletes in CrossFit that could just out-train diet. And that was because they were training so much and with so much intensity. And in that model where you're like training 2.5, 3 hours a day, and doing a lot of stuff, like your activity goes through the roof. And plus there's energy demands for recovery, and it just adds up a lot. And you didn't have to have the perfect diet to see a transformation. So you see these athletes that people are, whoa, that's muscle. I kind of want to, and though they don't have a great diet. So if I just go to the gym and I do my 15-minute Metcon with a little bit of strength for my 60-minute class, then I can just sort of eat whatever I want, right? Like, the classic video that just like circulated the CrossFit scene. Maybe you know what this is. Maybe you know what I'm alluding to, but it's Rich Froning eating peanut butter and jelly out of a Tupperware that is just a big mix. He's just spooning it in and drinking chocolate milk all day. All day. It's like, and everyone's like, cool, I go to CrossFit and I just eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
It's my new diet.
I'm going to look like Rich. And that's not, it worked for Rich at the time because he was training a tremendous amount. He just needed calories to keep going. But put that in the hands of the everyday client, the whole model was broken. So we talk a lot about, and I've talked about this before, but one of the big things I realized was the type of training that you're doing. We're here to try, for people to change their bodies. Like, we need to optimize their energy balance equation. I say that on the podcast from time to time. Let me just reiterate what that actually means. Energy balance is the balance of how much is coming into the body and how much is leaving. These are calories. So energy, calories, it's a unit of measure. If you're eating 2,000 calories and you're expending 2,000 calories, you're in energy balance, and this is the equation. To optimize it, we want to optimize it for your goal. So if your goal is to get big, we need to add more calories. Like, the calories got to go in 3,000 calories, and you got to only spend 2,500. That way you're in a surplus, and that helps somebody get bigger. That's what they want. Now, most people are like trying to lose weight. So we got to either increase your energy, so more energy, like 3,000 calories of expenditure and 2,000 calories of consumption. Now you're in a deficit. That optimizes the equation for that person. So to optimize the equation, we need the right balance of good nourishment and good training. And what's interesting, and this is like, a lot of people love to say, hey, it's just about the equation, right? Calories in, calories out. That's what we're working with here. And there's no refuting that. That's how physics works. But the type of calories you eat has an impact on this whole thing. Let me be very clear about what I mean by that. If you eat 1,000 calories of rice or 1,000 calories of Twinkies, same amount of energy is going into your body, right? It's not better to have 1,000 calories of rice in terms of calories. However, I'll use a different example. If you eat 1,000 calories of apples, with those apples comes a tremendous amount of fiber, a lot of chewing that has to happen. The volume of actual food is astronomical as compared to 1,000 calories of Twinkies. What does fiber, chewing, and food volume do? It fills you up. It helps the body that's consuming it process it in a different way that sends the brain sends signals to your brains that, hey, I'm full. I don't need to eat more. And when you're eating an apple, you don't suddenly start craving, Sour Patch Kids. But if you're eating candy and sugar and Twinkies and highly processed things, it's the volume of food is the size of my hand to get 1,000 calories versus a giant bowl of apples to get the same amount of energy. So that's the point to say not all calories are equal, right? 1,000 calories is 1,000 calories, but if it comes from this source, it's going to affect the balance that we talked about, the equation. If you eat it from this source, it's going to affect the calorie balance in a different way. Same thing over here on the exercise side. This is really something that people don't get. You go burn 1,000 calories, okay, people are like, that's great. And I keep using 1,000 because that's a round number in my mind, but realistically, you go to the gym and exercise, you are maybe burning between 300 and 400 calories on average, right? That's going to vary depending on what you do. Going to the gym and doing an hour of cardio versus going to the gym and doing yoga versus doing weight training, they all will end up with a different amount of energy expended. But what if we just consider you'd go and do 3 different activities or 5 different activities and they all burn the same amount of energy, the net impact that they have on your whole system in this whole equation is still different. Here's a very important way to think about that. And what I saw for years coaching the super high intensity versus maybe how we're approaching things now. If you go and do something super high intensity, like let's say, super hard CrossFit Metcon class, right? Like you do 3 benchmark workouts back to back to back, and each one makes you literally question your life. Like, I'm just laying on the ground, like wanting to throw up, and like, why did I show up to class today, kind of thing. What comes with that is a lot of mechanical stress on your body, a huge lactic acid dump, a brain commitment level that is just like, oh my God, I'm exhausted. Like, it's a perception of exhaustion. The number of calories that you burn in that session could only be, let's say it might only be 350 calories, whatever it is. All right. But it has this lingering effect on your body. Some people call that the afterburn. You're going to burn more calories later in the day because you pushed it so hard. Might be true. You're also going to feel tired, mentally fatigued, and because of these lactic acid, all these different hormones that are pumping when you do kind of training like that, it's going to affect your digestion. It's going to affect your brain chemistry as to what you need in terms of like nutrients and what is going to what you think you are craving and what your body needs. You're going to start to crave sugars versus the person that goes and does 350 calories of incline treadmill walking that takes an hour. Same energy expenditure. They might not get this afterburn effect that people discuss, but they finish that workout. They did a great sweat. They have their wits about them, and they will likely make better choices. They have a greater capacity to make better choices around the food that they're going to eat. So this was years of thinking and seeing and experiencing it and watching clients struggle with this, struggling with it myself as an athlete that was performing at the highest level of intensity. I wanted to be a clean eating athlete, but man, all I really wanted was ice cream and rice cakes with honey all over it at the end of the day, and that was the only thing that was going to get me ready to train tomorrow, and feed this like insatiable sugar craving that I had from doing the type of training I was doing. So with that, I was like, we got to adjust this idea of chasing intensity, because chasing intensity isn't what optimizes the energy balance. Getting more energy expenditure, that helps people. Reducing calories helps people. What are the foods that help you do that consistently over time? Eating whole, real foods. What's the type of training that helps you do that over time? Increase your energy expenditure and optimize your metabolism. Well, weight training and, sustainable aerobic work or cardio, right? With periodic doses of intensity in there. But if that's the number one approach to training, then I have seen personally through tons of experience with clients that it can make it very difficult to make good food choices to keep you in the right energy state to optimize your equation.
Great.
Whew.
Yeah. Whoa. Okay.
Yeah. Anybody else tired?
Yeah. Okay, well, follow-up question.
Okay.
So I'm hearing you say that we need to optimize the quality of the food that you're eating.
That's correct.
I'm hearing you say that we need to, instead of train super high intensity and eat Captain Crunch, train some weights, eat real food.
Yep.
When it comes to getting the energy balance right, I've been to those online calculators and they always ask, do you want to gain muscle or lose fat? And that's a point that I think might hang up some people if they're in this position.
Yeah, I think that, and it's what's interesting is that it's not so simple to say I want to be in this category or this category. You know, what you need to build muscle is like three things really. You need some protein. You need energy, and you need like hydration, water. If you have those things, you're going to be good. You can build muscle. Now, where can that energy come from? Well, it comes from the food that you eat, fats and carbs. I should say you need a training stimulus. You need to train, right?
Fair enough.
Yeah. But it can also come from the energy stores in our body. So if you have body fat and your body starts to burn that fat for energy, that can go into helping to make and build muscle. So it's possible to build muscle while you're on a caloric deficit. You're trying to lose body fat and gain muscle, because remember, your body's going to use the energy from somewhere. It's using, energy from your food. Oh, I don't have enough food, so I'm going to start to burn some body fat. And then look, you're lifting weights and you're eating protein and you're drinking water, so your muscles are trying to grow too, like they got a stimulus. So really, I think the answer to that question is like, what's your starting point? Where are you starting? And that will help guide you to, oh, I want to gain muscle first, or I want to lose body fat. Because most people are like, well, I want to lose body fat, but I also want to gain muscle. Like I don't want to just do one or the other. So when we're looking at calculators online and they want to spit out a number to you, the ones that when it's asked, do you want to build muscle? If you click, I want to build muscle, they're unless there's somebody out there that's using a different language, but they're all the same. You say, I want to build muscle. What that's going to do is it's going to calculate numbers that put you in a surplus of calories, because they're assuming, okay, I got to get my energy to build muscle from the food I'm eating. So they're going to say, okay, let's take this is what you need at baseline, like this level. Let's bump it up by 10 to 25%. Let's just increase it from there. So for the person that's looking to burn a bunch of body fat and lean out, eating in a caloric surplus is probably, it's not the best choice. It's going to be tough. I'm not saying you can't lean out while you're in a surplus, but because it happens for some people, but it's just not likely that that's going to happen. Like, in order to do that, you would need to you'd be eating a surplus. Plus, you'd have to be training super hard, where you'd have to basically manufacture this thing in a way where you start to overtrain your surplus, and now you're pulling from fat. I don't want to get too complex there, but the bottom line is you click the button on the calculator that says I want to gain muscle. It's putting you in a surplus.
Yeah.
Now, most people don't want that, so they should be aiming for I want to lose body fat. How much body fat and how quickly you want to lose body fat is going to be the determinant as to whether you can maintain your muscle, maybe gain some muscle along the way, or you're going to try and lose so much fat that you also lose muscle at the same time. So it's just that's more of a matter of do you want to go aggressive, or do you want to go, marginal, right? And this is what people talk about when they say, body recomposition. You take somebody who weighs 150 pounds and then you lose some fat, but you gain some muscle. Now they weigh 150 pounds and they just look different because they've changed where those things are sitting in their body. It's moved from this to that. And if that's what you're after, then I think body recomposition works best when you're in maybe a small deficit, because a small deficit means that your body is not going to freak out and be like, whoa, we're totally undernourished. I have to start breaking down all the stuff in my body. Right? We call that getting into a very catabolic state where your body is undernourished. I need to break down my body stores in order to survive. Sometimes that means breaking down fat. Other times it means breaking down muscle. You're way under eating and your body needs amino acids to develop enzymes and really important things in your body for biochemical reactions, and it needs to get it from somewhere. Oh, I've got this muscle tissue that is not as important as my heart function, so I'm going to start to break down these tissues to get some amino acids. So again, I would say by and large, people are going to be most satisfied when if first they want to lean out, they want to have a different body composition, starting on a process of let's lose some body fat. And possibly if you're relatively new or an intermediate trainee, you might gain some muscle at the same time, but you do that on a caloric deficit. And then you start to get leaner, and you get to a leanness that you feel confident in, you feel really good about. And then you're like, hey, I think I want to build some muscle now. Okay, great. Let's build some muscle. Let's put you in a surplus. Let's try something different. But if you're in a caloric deficit, you're not going to put on 10 pounds of muscle. That's not likely to happen unless you're a very, very beginner and you have a starting place of like, I have a lot of body fat to lose.
Yeah. And I think it's important to remember that change does happen slowly and gradually, and it will happen if you're consistent. It's just you're going to have time to adjust your factors as you go.
Absolutely, yeah. And going back all the way to where we started talking about the CrossFit bodies, and it's like people see the end product and they're like, whoa, I don't want to get there like tomorrow. Like that's a lot. But if you took a weekly photo of just my journey, for example, or any one of these, female athletes, these superhero female athletes, and you just saw it over time, you wouldn't see much. But if you look at the last picture and the first picture, I mean, I think it was just a YouTube episode on Tia Toomey's page recently where it was like, here she is 7 years. It was like her 7-year physique.
Wow.
And her day one physique when she did her first open. And it was like, whoa, like she looked like average, person coming into the gym. I mean, she was athletic. She could move all right, but you now see her and she's a superhero.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that's what 7 years of 8 years of super consistent work looks like. So yeah, it takes time, it takes discipline, and it takes consistency. So, to the point of choosing something that's manageable, small deficits, small surpluses, and just hanging in there and doing it for a long time, like that's where you're going to see those gains that you want. And yeah, there's always going to be that person that started the fitness journey and 2 months in, they dropped 20 pounds and they had this like quick transformation, and it can maybe feel a little defeating to be like, why did that person get there so fast and not me? But there are always exceptions to the rules out there, and those are not the people we should be modeling after. We should be modeling after let me see your 7-year transformation. Wow, you really crushed it. And when you do it over 7 years, guess what? You've got that for most of your life. Like it's there. You can always regress, but that's something that as an athlete my whole life and where I'm at today, it's like if I have a couple bad days, like I don't go back to zero. I'm still in it. I've built up this tremendous base from discipline and consistency.
Yeah, awesome. Any final takeaways?
Nope, nothing.
Okay. Well, we're not totally sure where this episode will be available for viewing, but I'm sure it'll be on YouTube somewhere. We can point you to it from our social media at functional.bodybuilding or at Marcus Philly.
That's right. Yeah. And if you are watching this, thanks for joining us. Great to see you. Camera 1, camera 2, and camera 3. And we'll catch you guys next time.
See you next time.